Goodfellow, and welcome to episode 10 of the SwimRun Show podcast. This week's guest is former pro-triathlete and great swimrunner. It's Chris Goodfellow. Chris has been swimrunning since 2017 after he kind of left triathlon and Ironman behind. And yeah, it was a great chat, really great advocate for swimrun. And he's towards more the performance end of the sport. He's podiumed in the UK and abroad, which is the true litmus test, really, where you can go over to the European races and top three it. So yeah, he also top 20 in the World Champs last year. So that's a fine achievement for Team GB. That was with his race partner, Piers Valance. So yeah, we had a good chat about Chris's race experiences and some of his kit choices and just all good swimrun stuff. So hope you enjoy it. Stay tuned for the end of the show. I'll have an update on the National Outdoor Expo and a few shout outs. So that's for later. But for now, let's dive right into Chris Goodfellow, excellent swim runner. Okay, so welcome, Chris Goodfellow, to the podcast. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Pleased to be here. Thanks for inviting me on.
Pleasure. Thanks for saying yes. So, Chris, I briefly met Chris at the World Champs last year. He was a top British athlete, but we'll come to that in terms of how he did at the World Champs in 2023. But before that, Chris, my race partner actually said, I didn't recognize your name, but he's big into triathlon and Ironman. And he said, "Oh, Chris used to be a pro triathlete." So where did you come from? What was the start? Well, what was the triathlon background and when did you get into swimrun?
So I stumbled into triathlon 2006. I kind of had a rugby background, played a lot of not professional, but top end rugby. Then went away traveling, came back, and while I was traveling, I fell in love with just kind of running as an adventure, and fell into triathlon in probably 2006. A friend lent me a bike, and I think somebody was doing. A friend of mine was doing an Ironman in Switzerland, and I thought, well, that sounds stupid. I'll have a crack at that. So kind of started in triathlon around 2006, I think. We just loved it. Really enjoyed the challenge and the adventure side of it, and the training. That was really just I enjoyed the process of training and having these the old goals to kind of go, big goals to go to. So. Yeah, and it kind of built from there. Started to just take it a little bit more seriously. And then I think in 2011, I did quite well in Challenge Copenhagen. I think I was the first stage grouper and was within 10% of the finishing time, and thought, well, that meets the criteria for applying for a pro license. So I thought, so I applied for a pro license and got it. And then in 2012, I'd raced and did the outlaw triathlon, raced against Harry Wiltshire, and he picked me to the post. That was quite a good battle out there. And then raced Challenge Copenhagen again, this time as a pro. And I think I was a bit worried, but we did all right. I think I was sixth or something like that overall, I think. And then after that, I raced in Challenge Henley, and I think I was probably fifth or sixth again in, racing with some people who I felt were, pretty decent. But it was a step below like the top pros. But I was holding my own and enjoying it. And so that's kind of was my triathlon. How things came in triathlon, and then my daughter was born in 2013, and I kind of took a little bit of a backward step because I was kind of working and trying to be kind of race professionally. So time came was a bit scarce, was a bit less time. So I think I kind of did a few more races, but then kind of switched to kind of just racing middle distance locally in the UK after that. Just life changed a little bit.
Yeah. Having children.
Yeah, but it was amazing. But it was nice, and I was still doing so I think in 2016 and 17, I was doing middle distance racing and really enjoying the process of putting a bunch of races together, like doing back-to-back races in various places. And I was still being pretty competitive. I think I was, I'd win the odd race and I'd come maybe fifth in the nationals or whatever, or something around that. I can't remember, but I think it was. in 2017, I had a friend of mine asked me to do a swim run, and I finished the end of the season. I've been doing I had a good season. I think I'd kind of done quite well in a couple of middle distance races, and a friend asked me to do swim run Coniston. I was like, yeah, that sounds good. It was a friend of mine, Luke. He's his top guy, really one of my best mates, and I think a few of us went up there. And I remember we did the race, and we came out. We did the first swim, and we came out, and I was like, "Mokes, we're in the lead!" And he was like, "I know." It was a bit of a shock. We weren't expecting to be at the front, but at that race, Daniel, one of the two Swedish teams,
Daniel Hansen and Kristin Larsen.
Yeah, they were racing.
Yeah,
and so we had a real battle with them for the first for the whole race until they dropped us towards the end when it was a few more transitions. But yeah, that was really cool. But after that, I still was kind of in try mode a little bit. And in 2018, I had I set myself some really, really big goals in triathlon. I'd said, right, I was going to go back to Ironman, and I was going to try and hit a couple of I wanted to try and break 8:30. That was my kind of goal of the year. And then I was out doing some kind of backcountry skiing, and I managed to rip my pec from my arm in February 2018, I think. Yeah. And so that put a kind of kibosh on, almost put a kibosh. Well, I had to kind of rehab that for 6 months. And still tried to do a couple of Ironman races till the end of that year. I did Challenge Almere, which my bike fell off the rack before the start. So I was stuck in the biggest gear for the race, and I think I was riding a single 60 on the front.
Okay.
Yeah, so that race, that was kind of that race kind of came where I kind of pulled out on the run because my back started to go. And then after that, we would ran around Mont Blanc with some friends for the weekend. And one of my mates, Luke, a friend of mine, we said, "Do you want to race in swim run Coniston again?" So I was like, "Yeah, cool." So that was the second time I did a swim run, which was in Coniston again with Luke, my best mate.
Mm-hmm.
And that time round, we won it, and we really had a fun day. We had a battle against a couple of brothers, which was quite fun. And
cool.
Yeah, that was kind of the first two races I did in swim run, I think.
Okay, well, that's a great start.
That's how it kind of all happened a little bit.
Yeah, well, that's brilliant. So second to Daniel Hansen and Kristin Larsen's a good debut, and then first the following year. So the level playing field when the Swedish guys dropped out. They weren't there in 2018.
Yeah, no. Well, yeah, there was actually in 2018 there was a couple of the brothers racing. Where one of the brothers
German.
was actually a pro triathlete. I can't remember his name.
Were they German?
No, he was a UK guy, brother. He just switched to racing pro, and his brother was actually pretty handy. Had raced pretty well in triathlon, middle distance, standard distance, and they were pretty quick, and we had a good battle with them. That was kind of good.
Cool.
And then I think the end of that year, I was supposed to be doing a triathlon in. I was doing a triathlon in Gandia, and I had a big bike crash, and everything was all a bit in the air, and I kind of was feeling a bit blue about just having had a bad bike crash, and it's always a bit upsetting. And my friend Luke phoned me up afterwards and said, "Do you fancy trying to qualify for the Otilo Worlds?" Mm-hmm. And I was like, "That sounds awesome. Let's do that." And then the rest is history. Then we kind of that was in 2019 we went to the Scilly Isles to do the race. This is a bit of a funny. Well, it's a slightly longer story because so we went to the Scilly Isles, and I'm notoriously I run very hot, so I'm always warm. I was boiling, and I was absolutely boiling in Coniston. Found it far too warm, the water.
Wow.
So we went to Scilly, and I was like, I'm not going to wear a wetsuit. I'll be fine. I'm super hot. So I wore I think it was the Vig. Mm. The one which is designed for warm, and didn't quite appreciate how cold Scilly was. Mm. So after the second swim, I think I was pretty hypothermic after the second swim. my legs and my arms wouldn't work, and I was like, and Luke at this point was like, "Come on, Gooders, come on, Gooders," and I was just in a bit of, oh, okay, but we made it through it. It was a pretty tough day actually, but that's one of the amazing things. It was, I don't think I would have made it through that day had I not been racing with my mate. I would probably pulled it at that point, but it's a different experience when you're doing it together. You get more out of yourself and as a team. So we missed out on a spot for the Worlds. And the team which beat us by 30 seconds was the brother team, the team of brothers who we'd beaten in Coniston.
Oh God!
But we kind of had a few beers with them afterwards, and they decided to not take their spot, and then we ended up getting a spot to the Worlds in 2019, and that's probably one of the best things I've ever done in 2019 with Luke. It was the biggest adventure. It was such a special day. I mean, we weren't competitive at this point. We were just kind of like just there for the journey. But yeah, that was a really, really special day. And whenever I talk about it with Luke afterwards, we both, even now, it was a really special experience out there.
It is an experience, isn't it? There's a lot there you've just mentioned, Chris. I just want to highlight bikes, guys. You know, they're great means of transport, but when it comes to racing, they can cause a lot of frustration. So I'm glad you've seen the light.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is with biking is that biking was always my strength. That was always the bit I was like in triathlon. That was my card. I was all right at swimming. Biking was my thing, and running I was not so good. But yeah, like there's a lot of it's quite nice to not have to be. There's a lot less kit admin, and it's quite nice not having the bike. It's kind of, I don't miss it, although it was my strength. I think it was probably the bit I enjoyed the least, even though it was the bit I was best at in triathlon, strangely enough.
Yeah, that's interesting, because that's similar to one of my race partners, well, most frequent race partner, Paul Skipper, who's done a lot of the similar, not
I know Paul.
do you know him?
Raced, I know the name. I'm sure I've raced against him at some point.
Yeah, so I'm sure probably have, because he's done loads over the years and his strength is the bike. And I got him. I convinced him to do Brecca Buttermere with my sister, who is his wife now. And he loved it. And his bike is his strength, but he loves the swim run. He really does. So it's interesting. Yeah, that's similar to you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's I enjoy it so much. But just kind of just getting out there for swim runs, it doesn't even feel like training. It just feels like a day of adventure, every day.
Yeah.
So
cool. So I'm gonna, because you're kind of we were talking offline a little bit there, and in the UK, it's not easy, but it's achievable to kind of podium in a swim run race without being a performance athlete. I've done it myself, so that's how it can be achieved. You go to Europe and Otelo race, for example, or a lot of the other races, it's much more difficult to podium. So I just wanted to look at the performance side for the UK, and it'd be great to see more British people on the podiums at the kind of world events. And you've got yourself, and I know Richard Stannard has done quite well. Alan Scott, Piers Valance, your partner in last year. But yeah, how do you think? Because we've got lots of events now this year. I think we're going to have lots more participants, eventually, and probably pushing on to 2025. But I feel like we're still much far behind. We're quite a way behind the performance guys when you go over and try and race in, Otelo Khan, for example, in France.
No, there is a big difference. I think that so the top level triathletes, when I was racing, which was a while back, I guess, if they decided to come across to do some Attilo races, I would expect them to be as good, but better than I am. But I mean, certainly this, because I'm not, I would say I used to be able to compete with guys because I was a fast biker, but I wasn't necessarily as good as them in the water or anywhere near as good as them running. But it's a funny beast because just because you're say a fast swimmer or you're a fast runner doesn't make you a fast swim runner. So it's a funny one, but I'm sure that there, if any of the top guys in say within the triathlon world wanted to want to do some swim run races, I'm sure that they'd be able to certainly be where I'm at. I'd expect them to be better, but you never know because like peers is a much like you can never tell from just how fast somebody is at running. Necessarily, it's a different beast because I'm not a very fast runner. I'm really not a fast runner. Yet I can still seem to keep up with people who are much faster than me running in swim running. I don't necessarily know how that works, but it seems to.
Yeah,
So
it's yeah. I know what you mean there. You're right. It's the trail running aspect, but it's more than that. It's the kind of transit, how you deal with getting from horizontal to vertical, and how you manage your kits is an element of it, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah. Because I
And
think I view the swims as rest.
yeah, right.
When I'm in the water, I'm resting. And then when I'm getting out, I'm going quite hard because I have to stay with the fast runners. But for me, every swim's a rest. But because I'm a bit, I guess, from the way I come at it, I guess because I'm a bit more of a lump. I use my strength in the water rather than my cardio system, so I can just cruise and still manage to stay up with most of the faster swim runners. Obviously, there are people faster, but yeah, I think it'd be really. I mean, it would be really nice to get a few more of the top triathletes within the UK just having a crack at it because it's a really fun thing to do on the weekends, which it adds to their training. If you're a serious triathlete, a swim run would definitely add. It wouldn't take away anything. You build it adds to your strength overall, and it's a fun thing to do within triathlon clubs. It's amazing that it hasn't taken off. Like a group of triathlon clubs. Oh, let's go do it with mixed. Join everyone together as that sense of community, and it's there just waiting to kind of like kick off. You get I don't know, Oxford Tri Club, and because I'm in Oxford, based in Oxford, and it'd be amazing to get the whole club and go off to a swim run. All the teams could pair together with different people. It's a really together day. Nobody would have to worry about being fast because within triathlon, I guess, I think the issue I have with triathlon is everything. Well, personally for me, the reason I kind of moved away from it is I started to do it for the wrong reasons because I was chasing positions and times.
Mm-hmm.
And then your sense of enjoyment is less because you're focusing on the wrong things. Whereas within the swim run, I kind of view it as an adventure with friends, and you get the most out of each other. You're really pushing hard, but the position, the time, it's just how hard can we go together as a team and have a great day. And that's a different feeling to how it is in triathlon, I think, for me anyway. But obviously, everyone might have a different feeling in triathlon depending on what level you're at and how you're doing it. But yeah, it would be nice to get some of the top guys in the triathlon across the swim run just to have some kind of. It's because racing is fun. It's fun racing against somebody else. Like I think last year we had in Roseland, me and I ended up racing with Piers last minute. Literally, we decided we bumped into each other the afternoon of the race, and he was like, his wife she was feeling a bit flat. She didn't want to race. So Piers she was like, you two should race. And we're like, yeah, that'd be cool. And then Alan and another chap who I should remember his name, but it's really bad, was Alan and another guy was racing. And we had an amazing race, as in terms of we were backwards and forwards. We were pushing, we were gapping, we were catching them up on the swims. They'd gap us on the runs, and it was a really fun race. So much more fun to having done it with peers. I think I was planning to do it solo because I didn't have anyone to do it with that day. But yeah,
right. Yeah. No, you're right. You need that competition to bring out the best, I think. And so
it'd be nice. It'd be nice if we. I think it's on the cusp of happening, but it just needs the nudge over with bringing more people over from triathlon. It would be lovely to see.
Yeah. So I'm gonna talk about kit in a little while, but I just want to rewind to Silly there because you mentioned, and it's related to kit, the Arc Vig on the Isles of Scilly, which is a relatively early well, it used to be actually June,
Yeah.
early-ish June, which in the sea in UK takes a while to warm up.
Somewhat
And
stupid using a vig.
no, I had a similar experience in 2016. It wasn't as lightweight as a vig, but it was pretty lightweight, and I was pretty cold because I think, was it the last swim that's about 2K or one towards the
Yeah.
end?
Yeah, the trouble, I think the trouble I had was it was 2K swim to start, and no, or 1.5K swim to start, like a 200-meter
Yeah,
run,
yeah,
and then another
yeah,
K swim,
yeah,
and so it was that bit which really did me. By the time we got to the end of the race, we were warm enough, we'd
yeah.
had enough body heat to kind of get through. Like the last swim was fine, I was okay. I was a little bit
Okay,
cold.
brilliant.
Yeah, it was just the you hadn't got enough time to build up enough body heat to then be able to do those two swims back to back, which caused me a few problems. But
Yeah. So good. Okay, good. I'm glad because that's a good tip for anyone looking at the courses before they enter or before they race. Just look at those run distances and swim distances early on, and it can influence your decision potentially.
yeah, because I
Because
think once you've been going for a while, you build up a residual amount of body heat, which keeps you going a lot better than at the start. So if those swims had been a bit longer, swims had been later, I'd have been better. But almost you need a different. You could have a different piece of kit for every course almost, because I mean you'd have to have a lot of wetsuits, and but you could, because every course is so different and unique, which is
yeah,
part of the fun. Everything is so different.
yeah. But caveat that, guys, with you don't need you don't need a different wetsuit for every course. You can totally
No.
do.
You absolutely don't. No, you don't. You could have one,
Yeah,
but I mean, like,
yeah.
for me, I've got one wetsuit which I use for everything, and it works. Literally, so for me, I use the sleeveless Uto Air,
Hmm.
and that for me that covers pretty much anything from 14 through to 24. I'm good with.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant, and that's a great
But
suit.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, and
So
I think it's sorry, Karen, what were you going to say?
no, I was gonna just say, did you? So I was gonna look at the World Champs kit that you wore. So I guess you
Yeah.
wore that on for that day.
Yeah, I with for that it's for this for the majority of the race I have arm sleeves on with the U2 Air,
Hmm.
and then when I want to cool down and swim and use the water to cool me down before say longer runs, I take the arm sleeves off, and if I want to stay a bit warmer, you have like a headband which to keep your head warm, and then just you have all these different options to kind of have different temperatures in the water depending on how you feel. I mean, the only reason I
Yeah.
use the U2 Air is I can't actually get in and out of the other wetsuits because they won't go over my shoulders very easily, because my shoulders are a bit a bit wider than maybe they should be. So I keep using U2 Air just because I find it easier to get in and out of. But that's just
Yeah.
me. Everybody else seems to be fine getting in and out of
Hmm.
them, but I really struggle.
Yeah. No, it is definitely easier getting out of the sleeve, the completely armless ones, for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all good kit knowledge. And yeah, I had that dilemma at the start of that race whether to take my sleeves because I was wearing the Uto, normal Uto.
Yeah. Did you take
Um,
your sleeves in the end?
I didn't take my sleeves. I had them on the ferry, and I was 50-50, and I was just thinking. And I had a bit of PTSD from a previous race. I thought, I think I'm going to be fine. So yeah, I didn't take them, and I was happy. I didn't take them at all. So yeah, it's all those decisions in your head.
Go for it.
They're easy to, if you do take them, they're easy to carry. They're so small and light. So
Yeah, I think if like with long, it's much easier for shorter days. When it's a long day, you never quite know how the day's going to go, so it's harder to make those decisions at the beginning. But
yeah,
when it's a short event, it's a lot easier to gauge.
yeah, yeah. So cool. So you mentioned the solo. You nearly did Roseland solo. Have you ever done one of the longer races solo, Chris?
Okay, this is actually quite. I'm gonna drop one of my friends in it here a couple of times. So apologies, Rob Johnson, if you ever listen to this podcast. So after all of the COVID stuff, I just over the winters and stuff. I would be swim running in the UK, and I chat to a friend, really good friend, Rob Johnson, and we were like, right, let's do swim run Malta together. He was like, yeah, okay, cool. So we were all set, entered, and then the night before we were flying, he phoned me up and was like, "Good, his passport's expired." I'm like, "You are kidding."
Oh, God.
So I phoned up the Attilo guys. And I was like, "Can I race solo in this race?" I was supposed to be his pair, and they were like, "Yep, that's fine." So they let me race solo in Malta, which wasn't planned. And I hadn't raced since the Attilo World Champs in 2019 because of COVID and stuff. I think this is the first race, and that race was I really enjoyed it. I mean, it was different. You know, I buried myself. I had a really fun day, and did pretty well. I was a bit surprised. I wasn't quite. I remember thinking I was a bit surprised by how fast the front guys were swimming because I thought I would be able to stay with them, but I couldn't. I couldn't because I think Hugo was racing with Adriel that day, and I was hoping to be able to stay with the lead swimmers, and they were just a little bit too fast for me. At the by side, and then there was a couple of other teams, but I think I can't remember whether I was third or no, I can't have been third overall. Or maybe I was fifth overall, I think, or something like that. As a second solo, there was this top Italian swimmer who was in front of me, who was another solo. But it was a really fun day, and I was really surprised. But yeah, I loved Malta. It was really cool, really dynamic. And I think there's a rather embarrassing video of me at the end, which they posted on things, which I kind of like just put my head in my hand. But yeah, I was pretty happy and pretty emotional at the end. So they put that online. And then I said to Rob, "Okay, mate, let's race Silly 2022." He was like, "Yep, yeah, fine, we'll race that together as a team." And his flight got cancelled.
Oh, Jesus.
So it was a night. He was flying out the night before the race because he couldn't take any time off work. So I think he was like. So I went and spoke to Michael. I was like, "Michael, not going to believe it. I'll make it again." So he allowed me to race solo in that, and yeah, and I remember that race really well because it was. I love racing in Scilly, and we'd been there for a holiday with the family beforehand, and that was when I remember getting to the first swim, and I remember trying to stay with Max and Hugo for the first swim, and I stayed with them for about 200 meters, and I was like, "Yeah, no, I'm going to blow my doors trying to stay with them for much longer." And then they just went off the front, but it was a fun day. It was those. So yeah, those are the two solo races that I've done, not on purpose. I had a good day on them, but then it's just a different experience when it is solo to a team. I wouldn't say. Well, it's just different. When we finally got together and raced with Rob, which we ended up doing in Engadin, it's a different experience. I think I prefer racing as a team because you have that connection with somebody and that memory and those shared memories, which are pretty special. It's just different. So yes, I've done those two races solo.
Cool, a good one. So second in second solo in Malta, and you did pretty well in Scilly.
Yeah, I think I can't remember. I was third overall, I think.
Wow.
I think there was another. So it was Hugo and Max. Then one other team. I can't remember the name of the dudes, but they were the UK-based guys who were actually pretty fast in the water. We basically raced together all day. It was me and this other team racing together pretty much. It was like we were like a 3-person team because I didn't want to spend too much time in long swims by myself. So we took it turns to kind of share the lead, and then they just hit me to the post at the end by they dropped me in the last run. Right. Unfortunately, but it was a really fun day, and it was almost like I shared the experience with these other guys. Even though I wasn't part of their team, we kind of almost were, and so that was fun.
That's really cool, yeah. And no, I mean Hugo was like national French team swimmer, wasn't he? So it's going to be difficult to stay. It's really cool because I remember looking at the winning time for 20. Whatever it was, 2020, or whatever the last winning time was for Scilly, and thinking, okay, well, it was 4 hours 30 something, and I thought, okay, that's the goal. Try and get to 4 hours 30. Try and do that. So I trained thinking, okay, that's what I'm going to try and hit. And I can't remember what Hugo and Max did, but they must have done 4:09 or something, and they just absolutely. It was you're like, okay, right, the bar has been raised, and pretty much since then, they've raised the bar, but people are starting to bridge back to them a little bit. I think it's getting closer, but I still think they're out there. Yeah. So Cool. That's a solo experience. Let's just go back to the. So we've got your wetsuit for the world champs. Was your outerwear. What did you go for on the paddles? I assume you had paddles.
Yeah. So I had the Arc carbon extra large. Well, extra large. So the ridiculous size ones. Which I don't think anybody else I've ever seen. I've never seen anybody else race or use them, to be honest. But it works for me. I've changed paddles actually since then, and I'm using and training in different ones now. But those ones, because it meant I could swim a really decent pace without putting in any real effort, cardio wise.
Mm-hmm.
So I could. So when I was swimming, I'm resting, but I'm still holding a decent pace because I'm using dinner plates.
Okay. So do you lead?
It doesn't work for everybody though, because obviously, shoulders can fall apart, and actually, my shoulders did fall apart in the World Champs. I ended up my right shoulder blew after not the pig swim, but the second one after that, and it was it'd been building all season. I think it was a niggle, so it blew, and I remember saying to Piers, "Mate, you're going to have to lead the swims," and I just swam behind him, was using my left arm for the rest of it.
Oh God! Right.
I think he was having to work a little bit, but it wasn't too bad because, like I said, because it was a dinner plate, you could just kind of But so we had to adapt, and so there obviously, that was one of the risks of trying to use dinner plates as opposed to slightly smaller paddles. But that's what I used in the World Champs. But moving forward, I've actually changed what I'm using. But
Right. Okay. Are you on the Evolvent?
Yes, I spoke to the chap who was I forgot what his name is, but the guy who's kind of making those, and I asked him to make me I think it was the Evolvent XTDs. I asked him to make me a slightly bigger pair than he had.
Of course.
Well, just because of the way I swim and stuff, I guess. But so he made me an extra large pair, and they are actually, I think, probably they're ideal because you can change how you swim with them really well. So personally, I think they're a really good set of paddles. But that's just I guess it's so dependent on the person, the individual, how your shoulders are, how strong you are, how you swim. So what works for me might not work for or it doesn't work. This doesn't work for most other people, but it would seem.
Yeah, probably doesn't. So when your shoulder blew up, you were using one arm, and were you kind of on a side, like a
yeah. I was kind of looking at the view with one arm, just like this. It was fine because the rest of the swims for the day were really short, and it wasn't a really big deal. It's just a kind of I could have used both arms, but I didn't want to get properly injured, so I took the viewpoint that I'd rather be a bit slower and not be injured for 6 months, and finish the race and not ruin my body as much. So it was more of a preventative than actually just because I could have just cracked on, but I think it would have properly ruined my right shoulder, which is fine now. So I'm pleased that we did it that way.
That's good. And so that's that. So and the pull buoy, what did you go for?
Just the big, the arc, just the biggest arc one. Because I'm a bit of a lump, I sit really low in the water. So for me, so if you imagine, I'm like a 90-kilo guy on a good day.
Right.
So yeah, the arc, I kind of I sit quite low in the water because of the weight. So the amount of buoyancy I get from a big arc pull buoy isn't as much as a smaller person, if you see what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I actually have shin pads as well to try and just give me a little bit extra buoyancy.
Yeah, shin pads, otherwise known as calf guards, or
exactly.
Well, go back to rugby days.
Well, they feel like shin pads because I bought some foam and just stuck them down my socks. The calf guards, yeah.
Good stuff.
Exactly, back in the rugby days.
Yeah. So, okay, so that's that. And then on the feet, what have you got on your feet, Chris?
Okay, so it's a little bit of a convoluted story. So I was using the 2 weeks before. So the World Championships wasn't planned. It was like a lastminute.com thing, because me and Pierre, I wasn't planning to do it. The plan was to I was supposed to do Rockman with a really good friend. and it was just supposed to be an adventure Rockman, and that was going to be my season. But we ended up getting a place in the world champs with me and Piers, and I looked at the logistics of how I could make it work, and then we actually worked out that I could make it work. I could do Rockman, and I was going to go away with the family for a holiday, and then I could fly straight from the holiday to do the world champs, and worked it all. Carly was like, my wife was like, okay, you can do this, it's fine. So I was going to Rockman, and then I was going on holiday straight from Rockman, and then I was going straight to the world champs. So I did the Rockman in Arc'teryx 195s.
All right.
Which are great. I really enjoyed. Really liked from racing in them, and they're really, for me, a really good shoe. But they fell apart in the Rockman completely.
Okay.
I got caught in some shrubs, so they basically, by the end of the Rockman, my feet were kind of like sticking out the fronts of both the shoes, and I couldn't really wear them properly. And I was like, okay, right, I can't wear these in the world champs, but I'm not going home, so I can't pick up another pair of shoes. So I need to order a pair of shoes. And I was flying to Spain on holiday, and I was speaking to Nicholas Ramirez afterwards, and Nicholas was like, he was saying, Chris, if you ever need anything, let me know. I'm like, well, actually, I do. I need a pair of shoes. I was like, what shoes do you race in, Nicholas? And he was like, oh, well, I've got a really good pair of shoes. They're Kilian Jornet's shoes, and it's a Spanish company. And I was like, right, okay, this is better than having nothing on your feet. So I figured, because I was going to Spain, it would be a Spanish company, it would be able to be delivered pretty quickly. So I got a pair of Kilian Jornet's shoes, tested them out a couple of times, and went to the Worlds and used those shoes. Which was not ideal prep, but it was better than having nothing. And they were a good pair of shoes. I was pleased with them. They were nice. They were good for a long day, I thought.
Yeah. And the grip, how was the grip?
Good. And that's one of the things which really made it, because of the way that they have their grip. It's probably more tailored to running on rocks than other trail shoes, because they've got the bits which stick out are flatter once they stick out, so they give you more grip than a trail shoe on rock.
Okay.
So actually, ironically, I think they were, well, yeah, Nicholas Ramirez knows his stuff, and he said it was a really good shoe. So I was like, well, okay, if he says it's a good shoe, I've got to use that shoe, because I didn't have much out. I didn't have many other choices. But yeah, so that's the shoe I used, and I was pleased with it. I would have liked to have had my Arc'teryx, the 195s. That would have been my preference, because I would have still preferred to have used those, but that was the way I went.
Yeah. Okay. And are they called the Kilian Jornet? Are they called normal shoes? The brand?
Normal, yeah. It's I think I got the make I have is Karag normal shoes. They're really, but to be fair, I will say that I put them on when I was running in Spain, and I was like, oh wow, like literally the first run, I was like, wow.
Okay.
This was, for me, it felt really comfortable, and it was. I'm quite a minimalistic person when it comes to wearing shoes, and I really enjoyed wearing those shoes. They were really good.
Okay.
So
I
would highly recommend those shoes from a comfort perspective.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Because I've only seen them once, and it was on Nicholas Ramirez's feet. And
yeah. He's pissed at me when he saw me in the Worlds. He's like, "You copying me?" Because I think like what he was using in Rockman, I was basically using everything the same as what he used in Rockman. I was like, well, no, it's just, great minds think alike, or something like
that. Yeah. Good stuff. And I guess lastly, what goggles did you go for?
The Speedo ones, the elite Speedo ones, which are kind of quite just the elite Speedo ones. What are they called? Do you know the one I mean? Which kind of like really kind of like wrap around your face.
Yeah, I don't know what they're called, but yeah, I know the ones. Yeah.
And the reason I like those is that they fit my face perfectly, so I never get any leaking.
Right.
It's a really good fit, and so that works really well for me, because it's just it just they fit my face really well.
Fast skin. Are they called fast skin?
Yes, that's it. Fast skin.
Just Googled it.
I'm the only person who wears them. I don't think I see anybody else wearing those goggles. So it's that's just. I think everything is so personal, and you look at everybody will have a slightly different take of what works for them. But yeah, so fast skin. I like those, and then I probably will carry on using those, I think.
Cool. Good stuff. So that's as Chris says, it's very personal and individual. And yeah, it comes over time. You try different things. Would you use those Arc'teryx shoes that fell apart? Would you trust them again?
I would, but because I know why they fell apart, because I basically got a tree poked through my shoe.
Okay. Okay. All right.
If that makes sense. So
Yeah.
I got caught on a spike, which basically just went into my shoe and just ripped off the front of it. But they don't last. So I think I really enjoy racing and wearing them, but I would, they don't last. They don't last. So,
Okay.
would I use them again? Yeah. Would I use them in the World Champs? Probably. I think the Norwegian one's quite an extreme day out.
The Rockman. Yeah. Yeah.
It depends. So I think it would very much depend on the course, because if you're doing it in a slightly more kind of, like on the river, or you're not going on such aggressive terrain, I think that I would use them. But I wouldn't use them in Rockman again. Definitely not. And I probably might not use them in, say, anything long, like long being like the 9 hours plus. But I think in shorter stuff I would.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And going for 2024, what have you got? Any races you'd like to share that you're planning to do?
Well, 2024 is a little bit of a kind of I'm racing in the Patrol de Glacier in 4 weeks' time, which nobody in the UK will have ever heard of or know about. It's a ski mountaineering race, which is pretty out in Switzerland. It's a pretty big deal. Outside of Switzerland, no one knows about it. But that's quite a big deal. So I've got lots of things which I would like to do, but I haven't committed to yet, because I don't know how the patrol's going to go, and see how the patrol goes. From my perspective, I'd love to go. I really enjoyed doing the Hokey Cokey, the swim runs, which I did last year. I like going down to Cornwall and that kind of part of the world, so it's quite nice to go head down that way. I'd really like to head up to do some of yours, Mike, as well, because you've got yours up in Liverpool, the Eliminator, and the thing is, almost it's really it's lovely, because there's so many. We've got the Hokey Cokey ones, and then I also I quite like the idea of either going to Tamaga or Uto, which is, it's up in the air. Me and Rob are kind of thinking about Rob, one of my guys I race with, what we might do, so nothing's confirmed at the moment. I am racing in the World Champs at the end of the season with a chap called Eric. So that's the only really confirmed thing. And we might do Gothenburg in the build-up, maybe.
Yes.
But it's very much, at the moment, I'm just going to see how the patrol goes. If I'm come out of the patrol and I'm not too broken and everything's gone well, then I'll look to do some early season racing, hopefully. And if not, then I'll let my body recover and build towards maybe going out to Sweden to do some like recceing the course, or maybe go to Gothenburg to race with this chat with Eric. And then the Worlds at the end is kind of like that's the only confirmed race I've got at the moment.
That's a good one to have confirmed.
It's quite nice. Kind of leaves. It means the rest of the year is kind of like one of those. Oh well, there's loads of. I mean, I'd quite like to go to Neen Park and do that. That would be lovely. That's like a festival where you can go camping the night before. That's something which really appeals. But there's just So nothing's confirmed. But it's a case of just kind of seeing how we go. I'd love to race with Piers again, and I've also said to Alan, if you ever wanted to race, I'd race with him as well. I think so. It's quite nice to have people who you could race with, and then just see how it goes and pick and choose, hopefully. So yeah, nothing other than the Worlds.
Yeah, cool. Just on the patrol there, people might be thinking, is this some kind of military thing? What's it's PDG?
Patrol de Glacier. It is a military thing, but it's also it's run by the Swiss military. So I know this is not this is from Run podcast, but anyway. So the Patrol de Glacier, you have to do it in teams of 3. You start in a Swiss village or town called Zermatt. You run with your skis on your back to the bottom of the glacier. You rope together. You put your skis on, and you run up on skis to the top of the Dent Blanche, a glacier, and then you ski down at night. This is all at night, so you start at midnight. Then you ski down the other side, rope together over the glacier. Then you basically you have a couple of other cols to go over. You then have to go traverse along a lake, up another col, up and down a couple of other mountains, and you finish in Verbier, hopefully, at some point like 10 to 12 to 13 hours later. I did it a couple of years ago with my brother and Sam, a good friend, and we're doing it again this year. We won't be competitive, but it's a pretty special thing to do with a team of three. And it's an adventure, but it's a hard one. It's a really hard one. I think last time we did it, we were only 25% of the teams that started finished, and we were I think we came like we were one of those teams, but it's not an easy thing to do. So
No.
Yeah, I don't know how long that takes to get. It'll have to wait and see how. Well, fingers crossed we have luck on our side, and we prepare as best we can and have a bit of luck, and we'll get to the finish in one piece.
Yeah, 25% finish rates is that's tough.
Obviously I think race. It was last 2 years ago. There was very little snow, so you had to run in ski boots for a long time. That makes it, but it's not as bad as it sounds, because all this stuff which we use is so lightweight that it's not quite as hard as it might sound. The ski boots are light as trainers, so it's not too bad.
Okay, cool. Well, that sounds
that's the Patrol the Glacier.
And it is, it's a team event. It's obviously great fitness for swimrun to lead into swimrun. So
yeah, it's very similar in lots of ways, to be honest. It kind of that sense of working together as a team to kind of get the best out of all of yourselves over a really challenging environment. Okay, there's no swimming and there's no real running, but it is the same. It has a very similar feeling to it. It's that team endurance thing, which it's something which I think is really special. Mm-hmm. Which I think the swim run has, the team endurance thing, that connection you have with the people out on the mountains or in the rivers or in the sea, kind of working together. I think it's pretty unique, but that's just what I think.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Chris, thank you very much for coming on, and we will look out for you in the season. And Chris and Piers Valance were the top British team last year in the World Champs. I think 19th position, which is pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know where we came over in overall. I mean, in terms of men's teams, we I think we were we were a bit higher up in men's teams, but I think overall it might have been 14th men's team, 19th overall, or maybe a little bit some in that ballpark.
Something like that, yeah. So top 20 anyway. And you might have lost a few places with one arm swimming. I don't know.
Not many, I don't think. It's only a few. I was probably only like a K of swimming, so not that many. I think we were pretty much set in our place.
Cool. Yeah, by that time, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks, Chris. And good luck for 2024. We'll certainly look out for you at the World Champs and everything else. Might see you on a UK race as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope so. Well, thank you very much for having me on. It was a pleasure chatting to you, mate.
Cheers. Thanks, Chris.
Cheers, mate.
Okay, I really enjoyed that chat with Chris Goodfellow there, a true advocate of the sport of swim run, I think. Interesting stories from his race experiences and a little bit about kit that he uses. Interesting about the shoes. You might tell I don't really plan the content in great detail for these podcasts. I just kind of talk to people I know will have stories and let it flow, So it certainly flew by with Chris there. And just on the hand paddles, it's the big one, isn't it, really, with the kits? And kind of you've got to consider the body. So we've mentioned it before, but do, if you've listened to the podcast for the first time, approach it from if you've not used them before, don't use them at your first swim run race. That's it, really. And then if you do want to use them, train with them, maybe at your pool or your local open water venue or wherever you want to swim, because you don't want to be getting into trouble during the race necessarily if you can avoid it. But if you do get into trouble, you need to be able to adapt, just like Chris did, and perform. So that's one of the things I love about swim run, because especially on the longer courses, things do happen, and there's a lot of stories out there that haven't been told yet. So yeah, it's a great opportunity to adapt to what happens. But if you don't be put off either, because if you're entering a 5 or 10k, a shorter race, generally less stuff goes wrong. And as I say, if you start off your paddle kind of journey with small paddles or no paddles, and then just build it as you go. I think we covered that a couple of times, but I know it comes up quite a bit. With regard to kit, and then the rest of the stuff is pretty straightforward. The trainers thing we've mentioned before. It's more, what are you comfortable trail running in? That should work. What else? We've had a couple of before we get to a couple of questions, I must mention the National Outdoor Expo show this weekend, which is going to be really cool. I'll be there on the Sunday, but we'll have several organisers and swimrun folks for the whole weekend. We'll be there Saturday, Sunday with John Yalland from Mad Hatter Sports, David Trehane from iSwimrun, Jude and Paul from Southeast Swimrun, Chloe Rafferty will be there on the Sunday from Love Swimrun, Nikki and Chelsea Bailey from As Keen as Mustard Swimrun, Mike Alexander, that's me, from WeSwimrun, and John Littlewood from swimrun.com. So a whole range of people there, not just race organisers, but there's a lot of race experience in there too. So come and ask us a question if you've got one, or just say hello. Gear, training, races, nutrition, whatever. I'm sure you'll find an answer. As I say, I'll be there Sunday, and most of the other guys will be there for the Saturday and Sunday. We've got our banner is Swimrun UK. We've got a kind of a stand booked, so all official, and we'll be. I think I've looked at the map, the venue map, and you go into the entrance and turn left, and we're quite near the entrance actually, so that's nice. What else? Oh yeah, a couple of questions one from Sarah with regard to team. What's a team? So if you're coming from, say you're a half marathon runner or a trail runner or a swimmer, and you say, swimrun, that looks good. I'll enter as a team, then I don't need to do the swimming. Well, the default position with swimrun is if you enter as a team, you do the whole course together in two people. It could be a mixed category, so male and female, or 2 males, 2 females. But you do it together, and you stay within 10 meters is the official rule. Sometimes get spent a little bit, but try and stick to it, and cross the line together helps. And then if you enter as a solo, you do the whole thing on your own. Okay, that's the default. Now there are a few organisers that are putting some, just to confuse things a little bit, but not to confuse things. It's really to open up opportunities for participation. And yeah, there's a couple of relay options coming up from a couple of race organisers. So if that is the case, they'll explain that on the website. So if there's nothing explained that's different to what I've said, the default position, team, do it in 2 together, then just take it as that. I hope that helps. A question from Jake with regard to fins, or flippers, some people call them. So can you use fins? Well, you can, and people used to a little bit more so than now. I've been to 2 races when I've seen them used, but 99.999% of people don't use them for races, I'd say, because they add a lot of faff during transition. So generally they're seen as a disadvantage. I guess if you had a swim run that was 80% swimming and only 2 swims and 2 runs, so officially, well, unofficially, whatever you like to say, a swim run is defined as two swims and 2 runs. Okay, and you carry all your kit for the whole course. That's basically the rules at the moment. So in theory, you could have a swim run that was, say, 5k swim, 10 meter run, 5k swim, 10 meter run. I don't know how you get on with using fins for 10 kilometers. Anyway, I'm digressing here, but it all highlights, doesn't it, the kit choices for each individual race. Usually swim runs are 20% swimming or less. Quite a lot are kind of between 17 and 22% swimming, just to give you the ballpark figures. I'm sure Paul McKenzie from Southeast Swim Run will tell you about one that's a lot more swimming. So chat to Paul on Saturday or Sunday and he'll tell you all about that. Okay, and that's it for now, guys. I've talked enough. Hopefully see you soon.